Good evening. I'm your host, Dr. Phil Hoffman, and thank you for joining us tonight on Pause. We're going to be talking about trying to get control of Kate coming up on this episode of Pause right now. And thank you for joining us here on Pause. I'm your host, Dr. Phil Hoffman, and joining us today, we have the great pleasure of welcoming Dr. Richard Herman, who is a theater professor at the University of Central Missouri. Welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Also Nellie Maple and Daniel Parman, who are actors in an upcoming show on the campus of the University of Central Missouri. So let's talk about that show.
Great.
Kate and our friend Kate, who is difficult.
Yes, right. Yes. In April, we are going to be producing William Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. One of the reasons is in our kind of production cycle, about every other year, we like to do Shakespeare. And so our last one was Julius Caesar. And so also, this is the 400th birthday of Shakespeare, or excuse me, the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. And so around the world, companies are doing lots of Shakespeare. And so we wanted to be a part of that as well. So we picked Taming of the Shrew, and we're off and running.
So why Taming of the Shrew? Obviously, you have a lot of stuff to pick from.
Right.
So what made you pick that?
Well, the last couple of shows we've done have been Shakespeare tragedies, and so we wanted to, again, do a comedy. We used to, several years ago, teach The Taming of the Shrew in our theater courses, and our theater students enjoyed it, and we also taught it in general education courses, and they've always enjoyed it. I've always liked the play as well, and it has lots of opportunities, and particularly the way that we're going to do it is going to provide lots of opportunities for students.
So when you say the way you're
Yes.
going to do it, can you explain?
Sure. As with Shakespeare, lots of productions like to, do a twist on his works, let him turn over in his grave a little bit, even though he'll be doing that. So I was looking for where would I put this play, and I think where I put this play led me also to why I picked The Taming of the Shrew. I've always enjoyed the American West, the 1880s, 1850s, whatever, and so we are setting it in the American West in the 1880s. Again, I think it works very well for the play because it's a male-dominated world, as the world of Taming the Shrew originally was when it was set. And so in the story, essentially, Baptista, who has these two daughters, Kate and Bianca, has moved to the West to run a hotel/bar for the mines. And so all the action is going to happen in a saloon. And in that saloon, then all of the characters and all the scenes are going to happen within that saloon. Still in the town of Padua, the Padua in the West.
Of course. I know it well.
Yes. And so, as we know, most of Shakespeare's plays feature men because this company was all men. And so this allows a lot more women to be in the show because literally I'm having some women play men's roles because a number of women in the American West that wanted to go west dressed up like men so they could, or fought in the Civil War and different things like that. So some of the roles that are traditionally male roles are going to be played by women posing as men. So that's going to be fun. When you put it in a saloon, you have opportunities then for all kinds of other characters within the town. And so there's a widow who lives in the hotel saloon and other characters and other women. So we have a cast of about 26, and I'd say it's about half and half male and female within that world.
So, and Nellie, you are one of the characters in this, and you're not Kate. We were talking about that earlier.
Right.
But you are a bartender in this bar. Tell us a little bit about who this character is and what she's like.
Well, that's kind of a hard question. She's not defined by the script.
Right.
Technically, she's not in the script.
Right.
She's a role that was created. So that gives me a lot of freedom to play with who I think she is. It also becomes a collaboration with the costume and the makeup design to find out and create who this person is because there's no parameters around who she is. So I think that's pretty cool. Judging from what I've seen of the costumes, the hair, and the makeup, they're trying to go for a little bit more of a masculine feel, but she's still in women's clothing and has long curly hair and whatnot, and there's a pretty cool scar on one of my eyes, I think, which is pretty sweet. Other than that, without having done any table work or been on my feet, we really don't know who she is yet, so I'm excited to go on that journey.
in trying to incorporate more women into the plays. And yet, why we would believe that. One of the reasons too, kind of the world. I've really enjoyed the Deadwood series that was on HBO, and that kind of world. And think of it back to some of those early mid '80s westerns like Silverado, and I remember Linda Hunt, the actress, playing the bartender in the saloon. And so there are those female bartenders, and they were usually very tough, and they kind of ran that world. And so that allows Baptista not to have to be behind the bar, but then have a bartender that runs his saloon. And there's going to be several bar fights, and we're going to have a piano player, and so there's going to be a lot of music added to the play as well, and singing and different things along those lines to capture that whole atmosphere of the bar. But because those scenes happen, Nellie's there probably most of the time. I cast her because she's tremendously creative, and I know that I can just turn her loose, and she's going to come up with lots of, just watching the other action of the play, come up with lots of fun stage business.
Now, when you are working on a version of Taming of the Shrew that is set in a different environment, are we going to continue with the Elizabethan language, or are you going to change the language?
No, we'll still have the language, and we'll still have the iambic pentameter and the scansion of Shakespeare, certainly there. A few words have been changed. The towns have not, so we could believe that there's a Padua and a Verona and a Pisa. I mean, if we have Versailles and New Madrid, those towns, right? Then we
I
can
think
have,
there's a Paris
yes,
and a
exactly.
Mexico.
Right, so we can have those as well. Well, why wouldn't we?
Right.
Our idea is maybe southern Wyoming, northern Colorado, silver mine type town. So that world. It allows then, actually, if we really look at Shakespeare and come the closest to what maybe the Elizabethan actors sounded like, they say it's probably southern Georgia. So it has kind of a southern flair to it. And so certainly the world that we're going to people is going to be also immigrants that have come to Padua. So I hope to have some Irish in there, some German, some Southern, fresh out of the Civil War. And so it's interesting how that Southern dialect works with Shakespeare, and it works pretty effectively. And so certainly we're not going to use, proper English, and we wouldn't, but we're just going to have fun to see, and that's going to flavor the world of Shakespeare in the language.
But
they still say knaves, and they still use all the same bodkins and all those words. Yeah.
So now one of those words is, Daniel, your character, Petruchio.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about Petruchio in the Wild West as you understand him to this point. What's that going to be like? How's the character changed, if at all?
Well, in the original, he's sort of like a misogynistic individual. He's very demeaning. He wants to kind of fix the way this woman works. So in our production, we're going to try and change that a little bit and make him more of like a sensible human, and not as much as an arrogant person. So they're going to try and find the nice line between both of them taming each other.
And so Daniel, that's because Daniel was a good human being. He's
right.
That's where.
Well, the play. I've read lots about the play, and there are those who say, well, it's just about these, women haters, these men who are, out to just, cajole and almost into slavery these women. And I've never seen the play that way at all. To me, the play and most of Shakespeare's comedies are love stories. And Lucentio, the secondary character, sees Bianca and immediately falls in love with her. I mean, he says, I'm in love. I gotta find whatever I can do to marry her. Romeo sees Juliet, and in the 14 lines of a sonnet says, I love you, and we're it. I think Petruchio does the same thing. He tells us before he meets Kate, he's come to Padua to wive it wealthily. I've come to find a wife. My father just died. My mom's died. I've got a new life to set out. So to me, he hasn't come to tame a shrew. He's come to find a wife. And that wife is somebody he wants to fall in love with. And so as we kind of sculpt this, it's more about him seeing her. They don't get along together, but they're going to have to find a way that they are going to get along together. So they essentially kind of tame each other. There's a line in there about when two fires do consume one another. So that's what they are. They are fire. They're two very fiery characters, and when they get together, they at times can join each other, and at times they put each other out too. So.
Well, and I know it, to me, it always seemed like, just like your classical, I hate to say this, but your classic romantic comedy where two characters meet and they hate each other at first, and the whole time you think to yourself, oh, they're just going to wind up getting together. It's sort of that mindset, I think, a little bit with Taming of the Shrew.
Right. Oh yeah. We say there's probably only 20 plots out there.
Right. Exactly.
in the world. So and Shakespeare knew that as well. Yeah. The interesting thing about the play, and why I like it too, is that it's not just about Petruchio and Kate. As a matter of fact, probably the secondary characters are on stage, and their storyline actually covers more of the play. There's various suitors to Bianca and how that's going to work out, than the story of Petruchio and Kate. In many ways. So you get that story, you certainly get the Petruchio and Kate story and the fun of that. But I really hope to see it as more a play on, he tames her and he manipulates her through language, as opposed to, he's not going to have a bullwhip, you know, and tie her up, you know, which, you know, there's lots of productions I've seen that, you know, it's very physical, and their first meeting is they're about beaten to death by the time it's over with. I don't foresee it that, you know, it's who can outdrink each other at the bar, who can out-talk each other at the bar. He's looking for somebody comparable to him, not somebody that he can totally dominate. That's not the world, I think, that Petruchio lives in as well.
Now, when we think about the actual process of going through something like this for you guys, it's taking something, I'm sure you're already well familiar with Taming of the Shrew, but it's taking that existing text and putting it into a different environment. So what for you as an actor is exciting or challenging about taking a well-known text like that and putting it into a different cooker?
I think it's always challenging to work within a different time period, because there's different levels of decorum that those people followed. There are different social standards. They move differently. I know pretty much all of the females are going to be wearing corsets. So physically, that's going to be, you know, a big burden on a lot of the female actors. So that'll be something interesting to work with, I think. Yeah,
I think just trying to figure out what those characters actually do and how they interact with their environment, because I always grew up watching westerns like Bonanza and Rawhide and The Rifleman, so getting a chance to kind of live in that time period is going to be pretty cool.
I think with any of Shakespeare, you know, even if we were going to set it in the Italian Renaissance, you know, as he said it, that would be a world that these students are unfamiliar with as well. So it's, you know, it's just what world are we going to explore? And we do a lot. I have a number of assistant student directors, and we call them dramaturge as well, where they do a lot of research on the play, and so they'll research the American West and bring all of that. Our designers have been immersed in it. And speaking of our designers, for this show, we're really excited. You know, we have the Meredith Harmon Sauer Distinguished Guest Artist Series. And so that allows us to bring guest artists from outside the university to work with us. And so we're bringing Broadway designer Todd Potter to campus, and he's designing the Taming of the Shrew for us. And so it's very exciting. Todd is an alum of our MA program, our Master of Arts in Theater program. And so I contacted him, and because I wanted our students to get that experience of how do you design a set for Broadway, and the ideas that go behind that, and then translate that into a set, you know, then for the university setting. So he's designed that, and we'll come out and do some workshops with our students as well. So we're excited about that. Tori DePue, our costume designer, has created some beautiful, wonderful, fun costumes. You know, at its heart, this is a comedy, you know, and so we also want those costumes to say something comedic. You know, those who know Taming the Shrew know that when Petruchio finally shows up for the wedding, he comes, you know, again in this array of things unfit for a wedding. And so, you know, he's going to have maybe a Native American bonnet on, and one leg chaps and the other rawhide and all of this. And so she's having a tremendously fun time, you know, assimilating all these different styles into a costume for that event as well.
Now the play itself is a product of an educational process in some ways, right? You both are students as well as actors. So let's talk for a little bit about the experience that you've had thus far as a student going to the University of Central Missouri, majoring in theater. And especially, too, I think nowadays a lot of folks would say, oh, why are you majoring in theater? You're wasting your life away, those sorts of things. But here you are doing it. So help us understand what that's like and why you're doing those things.
I think one of the main reasons that people choose to go into theater is because they can't really imagine themselves doing much else. You know, you don't go into an acting major expecting to make a lot of money right off the bat. You know, it's kind of a scary dive into the career field. Getting ready to go into it myself, I'm pretty freaked, but super excited because I do feel tremendously prepared by UCM. I think the array of opportunities that we get here to work acting-wise as well as technically, we're very much encouraged to do technical aspects as well as act, so we come out a well-rounded artist instead of just a performer or just a designer or whatnot, so we can, you know, have a better chance going into summer stock jobs, going into repertory seasons, things like that, because we have a multitude of skills. So that's something that I've really appreciated. I know a lot of other places don't give that opportunity. So I think that that's been something that's going to be extremely helpful.
Yeah. I always came into theater under the aspect that I wanted to do everything. But with theater, I get to do everything, but not have one specific job, like a policeman, a doctor, or a lawyer, or anything like that. I can play all those roles at some point in my life. And also a great thing about being a theater student is that it prepares you for your craft. Not all actors have to go to school, but here we get to practice over and over again. So with time, we can just perfect almost everything that we want to do.
And it's good networking. I mean, we have a lot of really cool professors that that know a lot
Forced to say that, by the way. She's blinking, help me.
But, you know, they know important people around the area, and I've been to numerous auditions in Kansas City where people have said, oh, I talked to this professor that I've worked with before, and I asked them about you. So I think that that's a neat thing that we have going on. You know, a lot of our professors still work, like they still do professional work. They still design, they still act, you know, they're not just here to teach us how to do it, they do it themselves. So I think that's pretty cool.
One of the things I found really interesting, Richard, was I had an opportunity to tour the theater that you use, and I was kind of amazed. I mean, it's really complex, and there's a lot of capability there in the theater. So it's, at least from my uneducated eyes as a person looking at it, I feel like it gives students a real opportunity to really learn the craft of theater.
You're very correct, Phil. We have one of the finest, I believe, and many will back that up, university facilities in the state, if not the region, with the Highlander Theater, because it's such a great viewing space for audience members. It's perfect size, about 440 seats, not a bad seat in the house. That proscenium stage, and then fully equipped behind with the shops, scene shops, costume shops. So all of those students really, it's amazing when you can keep them all together, the kind of collaboration that goes on. And I go to a lot of other universities, and the scene shops across campus over here, and something else is over here, and something else is over here. And so that daily just seeing them all and knowing that there's work to be done and what can I do helps build that as well. But with that space and the black box space, which is our 100-seat adjustable space that we have over Nickerson Hall, they really have a lot of great opportunities. I did want to talk about an opportunity that involves Daniel and Nellie, again, and one of the reasons that we brought them is we participate in the Kennedy Center American College Theater Festival, and this is the national organization for universities to hold opportunities for students to audition in acting and design and playwriting across the regions and across the nation for scholarship awards and that. So honors for the Kennedy Center are really kind of the top honors that a university student can receive. So just recently, Nellie was nominated for what's called the Irene Ryan Acting Scholarships. And Irene Ryan, of course, was Granny on the Beverly Hillbillies. gave a lot of money to the Kennedy Center for scholarship opportunities for actors. So Nellie was nominated as an actress, and Daniel served as her partner, where they prepared 6 minutes of monologues and scene work, and then went to the regional festival, which was held in Minneapolis a few weeks ago, and where they competed then with 80 other universities, a total of about 350 students, for top spot in the Irene Ryans. And Nellie and Daniel made it to finals, which from those 380, there were 16 finalists. Nellie then won the Outstanding Musical Theater Performance, and then about 2 awards later, they announced that she had won the whole regional festival. So she and Daniel get an all-expense-paid trip to go to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. In April to compete for the National Festival, where there will be 8 other students there from 8 other students and their partners from across the other regions competing for that. So we're really excited about that. It's really testament to the training and the kind of work that Nellie and Daniel have done. Nellie's a senior. Daniel's actually a graduate student. He graduated with his BFA in musical theater with us last year, 2 years ago. Yeah. He's already been working in Kansas City. He was in, this summer, he was in the West Side Story, the Spinning Tree, professional musical theater company in Kansas City. Played one of the lead roles in that, so they're doing very well.
And you're not going to miss a performance when you're gone in April, right?
No. Luckily, it's 2 days after the show is when we leave. Yeah.
Yeah, they take off as soon as we'll be here to strike the set, but then they'll take off. Take off to go do that.
He's a taskmaster. Isn't he? So Nellie, obviously you have to be really excited about this, right? The process. What was it like for the both of you that day going through? I'm sure it's a very competitive kind of process.
Well, you start out in the beginning of the week. It's the day after we arrived, and you take your 2-minute scene. They changed the rules this year, but you have a 2-minute scene, and then I have a monologue, and you put those together. And then the judges watch that, and they say, okay, this many of you, I think it was like 64, are moving on. And so then you go to semifinals, which is your 2-minute scene and your 3-minute scene. And so then you don't perform the monologue that round. And then from that, different judges look at that and they say, okay, 16 of you are going on. And then at that point, you perform all of your pieces. So you do the minute monologue, the 2-minute scene, and then the 3-minute scene. And the judges adjudicate that, and then they pick, I think they went through 4th place. So yeah, that was kind of insane. I don't really remember much of the, honestly, that sounds kind of silly, but I was kind of standing in the wing area because I had just come down from the Musical Theater Performance Award, and I was like, well, I want to see who wins, so I'll just stay down here. And so I had to kind of wait next to the stairs as Daniel, who was in the balcony, comes running down to be with me so we could go up and accept the award. So it was pretty cool. Yeah. It was pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. There were a lot of really, really great performers there that I feel really blessed to even get to know, because again, that's people that I'm hopefully going to continue to talk to, and you know, they might help me get a job someday. They might be in this really cool show and they say, oh, I know this person, I talked to her once and she did this thing. So it's kind of weird how that sounds, but it works sometimes. So
yeah. Well, it's a small field, really, when you think about it.
And at the Nationals, they have lots of awards for those students. It's not just one person gets an award. For instance, you might get an invitation to the Shaw Festival for the summer to work as an apprentice there, or the Actors Theater of Louisville might have you come for 9 months and work with them. So there's lots of not just scholarship or awards, but potential employment as well. Nellie, you went to the finals the last 3 years, right? So Nellie's gone to the finals the last 3 years, so that was she's done some great work here.
And then off to DC, and hopefully, what happens if you are the winner in DC?
They get that's some big scholarship monies or monies. I forget if it's just scholarship or monies, because a lot of times they're seniors, graduating seniors, right. So they're not going on and would use that as scholarships. And then, as I say, a lot of other companies are there. There's a lot of talent agents there. And there's a lot of directors of Washington theaters, like Woolly Mammoth is there, and the Arena Stage. So it's really potential employment. But right after Nellie gets back, we'll take her and her class, her senior class, which have about 16 graduating seniors. We'll go to Kansas City for a showcase that we do there. We showcase all of our actors to all of the professional theater companies in Kansas City, and then a week later we're taking them to Chicago, and we do a Chicago showcase. So the goal out of all of that is to, we don't want to just bring them here and say, okay, you want to learn about acting, but we want to bring them here and say, okay, and let's get you employed. Let's get you that first and second and third job, and get you employed. So that's the reason for taking them to those kinds of auditions as well.
Now, we only have about a minute left.
Oh, okay.
So the important thing we want to talk about right now is the performances and how to get tickets.
Great, good. So the performances are April 6th through the 10th. So April 6th through the 9th, Wednesday through Saturday, it's 7:30 p.m. in the Highlander Theater, and then Sunday on the 10th, it's a 2 p.m. matinee. All right. Box office will open about 2 weeks before that. Box office is open 9 to 3. It's outside of the University Theater. The phone number is 660-543-8811, and so audience members can call that to get tickets. They can get tickets typically the night of the show, but we anticipate this being very popular. There's going to be a lot of high school groups that'll want to come see this. And it's important for them to see Shakespeare as well as read Shakespeare. So
great. Well, it's important for you to come and see Taming of the Shrew in April and to see both Nellie and Daniel before they are household names. So thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you watching us here on Pause. We'll be back with another show next week. Thank you for joining us.